welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets life. We are inside of the Great Lakes Honda City Studios, Great Lakes Honda City on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York, and has a vast array of vehicles, new and used. It's where I get all my cars. I put my money where my mouth is, literally. So head over to Great Lakes Honda City today and see why I've chosen them for over a decade, and you can find out more at greatlakeshondacity.com. With that being said, picture in picture with Brian Newberry. Him and I have made a habit of this here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, Navy Midshipmen Head Football Coach, reflecting on the 2024-25 season and stepping forward into 2025-26. Coach, how are you?
Doing great. Doing great. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, and happy to have you here on the broadcast. And, you know, I got to go into the elephant in the room game. I talked to you about the Army-Navy game in the past. I've had the opportunity to watch it. It's typically around the time that my mom and dad and I would go get our Christmas trees and cut them down. And this year, I was like, I got to be there. I can't just watch this thing on TV anymore. And got to go out to D.C. and then land over Maryland and the Commanders Stadium to experience what this was like. Just bring me into what you see from you. I mean, do you allow yourself to, because I know you're focused, you're watching film going into it. This is an extremely high intensity game. Nobody wants to lose this game. But do you allow yourself to have any of the pageantry, any of the looking out and seeing all of the midshipmen and just this sea of white that is everywhere? Do you allow yourself to kind of live in the moment at all during the Army-Navy game or prior to that?
Yeah, I'm human, and you can't help but feel that pageantry and the patriotism when you walk in there. And I always, take a moment, before the game. Just so grateful to be a part of it, and then if you have time to breathe, which I did kind of toward the end of the game, late in the fourth quarter, you try to take it in the course of the game as well. And then afterwards, you kind of let it all hang out and really take it in. That's where the kind of the emotion of everything sets in.
Yeah, and like you said, you gave yourself the opportunity to have that. What brought you to? I know that you came onto Ken Niumatalolo's staff when he was the head coach at Navy, but what was it about Navy? Because it's so interesting, because it's so unique, this Naval Academy for the United States, that you're not just a head coach of student athletes, you're a head coach of people that are protecting the world, not even just this country. What about this opportunity when Ken gave it to you made you think this could be the right fit for me?
Well, I think you get into coaching to have an impact. I know the reason I even considered coaching was because the impact that my high school coaches had on me was pretty profound. And what makes, I've coached great young men everywhere that I've been. Just seem to have a lot more of them here at the Naval Academy, so you have the opportunity to impact the lives of young men that are going on to serve and lead in our military. And so it's even a bigger kind of responsibility and a privilege to be able to do that. It makes it a little bit more meaningful.
And having that opportunity come about, and now seeing success, we saw Navy. I've covered Navy for over a decade. I've seen the midshipmen come into the American Athletic Conference after being independent and have immediate success. And then there was some sustaining of success at times. And then there were dips and kind of ebb and flow of things. And now we're seeing an uptick with the midshipmen here in, this past season and kind of building up to this past season. What do you attribute this road to, because you were a part of it as a defensive coordinator for a while and now as the head coach of the midshipmen? What can you say about the resurgence of this? Because I was waiting for this pendulum swing to come back in Navy's favor, and we've seen that. How did it happen, in your opinion?
Well, I think there's a lot of factors involved, and the season that we had, and you take a look at recruiting, what we've been able to do the last couple of years. You look at how we're developing our players, and the first guy I hired, on the strength and conditioning staff was Jim Carizzi. I think he's done a phenomenal job of developing our players. I think we look a little different right now. We're moving a little different. I think The staff that I've assembled here is tremendous. The addition of Drew Cronick as the offensive coordinator obviously had a huge impact
Yeah.
on our season and on our program. And the emergence of Blake Horvath. For us to be good here at the academy, and we look at the history of when Navy's played good football, we've had good quarterbacks,
Yeah.
and we don't have that right now. And so I think it's a combination of a lot of different things. Me getting more comfortable in the role as the head coach, and getting settled into that, and having a better understanding of who our team is, and knowing our players better, and them knowing me better. But tremendous staff. I think we're recruiting really well. We're developing our players, and we're retaining our players as well.
Yeah, you spoke about your quarterback, Blake Horvath. Just what you saw from him this season, what you saw from him and his resolve in the Army-Navy game. I mean, we come into that game, and Bryson Daly is a nationally known name, and he obviously did an incredible job as far as touchdowns and the work that he did in Army's offense. But here's Blake Horvath on the other side, and it's kind of like one of those things like in that Army-Navy game where there's so many eyes on it. If you don't know, now you know, is kind of what it felt like. What can you say about Horvath and what he's done and how he's evolved and just what element he brings to your offense?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, he's a great kid, a great young man. Has all the intangibles you want, in a quarterback. He's really tough. I think a lot of people don't understand some of the injuries he dealt with during the middle part of the season, and played with some of those injuries that a lot of people wouldn't have played with. But just a phenomenal young man, obviously really talented. He was an under center guy in high school, has really developed as a passer. I think he's a perfect fit for what we're doing offensively, where I wanted to take this offense. Having the ability to get under center and execute the triple, and read it well and deal it well and all those things, and then the ability to get in the gun and to do some of the things we're doing there that are more in the spread world, or RPO, and running some option out of the gun. He's able to do that pretty seamlessly, and really he's kind of a perfect fit for what we want to do and how our offense has evolved, and he'll continue to get better. I mean, he didn't play as a freshman, broke his hand early on his sophomore year, really his full season of playing. I'm excited to see how he makes progress, this off season, this spring, and he's an exceptional player.
Yeah, and to go into some of the numbers here for this season, Blake Horvath threw a school record tying 13 touchdown passes when you talk about this offense, tied Ricky Dobbs, who threw 13 in 2010. And Horvath accounted for 4 touchdowns in Navy's 31-13 victory over Army in that Army-Navy matchup in our nation's capital, rushing for 196 yards, 2 touchdowns on 24 carries, throwing for 107 yards, and 2 passing touchdowns. He had the game-tying touchdown against Oklahoma on a school record 95-yard touchdown run and gave Navy the lead on a 6-yard scoring run with 4:34 remaining in that bowl game. We also look at the fact 1,246 yards rushing is the first Navy player to rush for 1,000 yards in a season since 2019, when we saw Malcolm Perry do it when he had 2,017 yards. First Navy quarterback to surpass 1,000 passing yards in a season since 2019. Also Malcolm Perry, who threw for 1,084 yards. The 1,353 passing yards are the most by a Navy player since Will Worth threw for 1,397 in 2016, and he's the third quarterback in school history to rush and pass for more than 1,200 yards in the same season, joining Keenan Reynolds, who I have a card of with the Baltimore Ravens, in 2015, and also Chris McCoy in 1997. And he finished as the number 9 graded runner, all positions, of a minimum 150 attempts by Pro Football Focus. So just absolutely, I mean, that's just naming a few things. If you watched him play and what he could do in a game, and just how him and the offense took over the Army-Navy game. I mean, we're discussing Blake Horvath. We know he has more time. He has more to give to this midshipman program and this offense. But we're talking about a team that is now passing and running the ball, doing it successfully, and doing something that hasn't been done in a lot of cases in 5 years, which is talking about your offense being multiple, Brian, which I don't think a lot of people prepare for things like that.
No, I think it's I love what we're doing. The what Coach Cronick brought in the wing T roots and background and some of the spread things that he was doing at Mercer before he left there, and you take those things and you kind of marry it up with some of the things that we've done around here in the past to have a lot of success, and it becomes something that's really really hard to defend, and it will continue to evolve. But to have a guy like Blake, making the decisions and being your trigger guy allows you to do a lot of unique things, and not only just to do them, but to do them well. And the thing that most people don't really think about too is you put those numbers together, and we had a lot of lopsided victories, especially early on in the year where he didn't play for a quarter and a half of those games. Didn't play an entire game for the most part against Tulane, and played banged up. And so what he did was exceptional, especially when you consider some of the things he was dealing with and not playing full games.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, if we had him in a full go, what could these numbers have even evolved to? Here with Brian Newberry, the head coach of the Navy Midshipmen Football Program, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Great Lakes Honda City Studios. There was a stat that I looked at before, and now reflecting on it at the end of the season, really incredible when we talk about what you can do in the turnover world. Because you and I spoke after the Notre Dame game where the midshipmen, and I think you would agree with me, and we already spoke about this, with all the turnovers, you played against yourself, essentially. When we look at what you did in victories this season, outscoring your opposition in points off of turnovers, 104 points to 7, and in your losses, outscored 48-0. So it really shows you, I mean, a direct, obviously parallel with winning those games when you're getting points off of turnovers, losing those games where it's on the other end. But 104 to 7 points in score off of turnovers in those victories. Just what you could say about what your defense did, you being a defensive-minded guy, and seeing how that defense created opportunities for your offense and took full advantage of those opportunities. I know you'd love for all of those to be victories, but in those victories, points off of turnovers, 104 to 7.
Yeah, I mean it's absolutely critical, and obviously it's something that everybody talks about, but we spend a tremendous amount of time working on that ball security on offense, taking the ball away on defense, and really really opportunistic on defense this year. I was proud of the way that we were able to do that. Yeah, I mean it's all in the numbers. When we won the turnover battle, we were undefeated. When we didn't, it was tough sledding for us. So absolutely have to take care of the football here, and it's the team that plays the hardest makes the fewest mistakes. And the teams that usually win the games, and so that's something that's been critical for us, and we'll continue to put a tremendous amount of emphasis on those things, moving forward.
For you, as you've evolved as a head coach, coming in and being a defensive coordinator, have you seen yourself kind of expand more into the special teams world, more into the offense world? Because whenever they talk about a coordinator to a head coach, it's always, well, which side do they lean on? Have you seen yourself become multiple and evolve as you've been the head coach here at Navy?
Yeah, I tell you, I've learned a lot of offensive football in the last couple of years, and I enjoy being involved in all of it. I think I probably spend more time during the day on the defense side of the football, more time during practice on the offensive side of the football, and as a head coach, you try to figure out where you can be the biggest asset for your program, and so I'm still trying to figure that out a little bit, but I've enjoyed being able to dabble on both sides of the football and special teams, and when you transition to being a head coach, there's things you miss about being a defensive coordinator. You miss the game planning piece of it, and the strategy goes behind it, calling it on game days, and but I found some new enjoyment, and being able to dabble in all of it, and really pride myself in understanding what's going on, and really trying to figure out how I can be an asset, to our offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and special teams coordinator.
Yeah, and in this season, being an asset, seeing how you can grow, how your student athletes, your coaching staff can grow. Picked to finish 11th in the American, you end up in the top 3. Something that I found, a couple things that I found really interesting this season is what you did scoring wise. 407 points scored in 13 games this season, comparative to what you had last season in your 12 games. It was almost 200 points more than what you did last season. So, just what you could say to that effect in the scoring increase. And this other thing that I definitely found intriguing here, you were the only FBS team in the entire nation of 130 plus schools to play 2 home games in your final 10 games of the regular season. I mean, that's, to me, that's insane. You know, your road warriors, obviously, but just what you could say about the increase in point total, adding almost 200 points from last season to this season, and just what it was like being away from home, away from Annapolis, but obviously didn't affect you guys more often than not.
Yeah, well, and I spoke to it earlier, just the addition of Drew Cronick and what he's been able to do. And really, you look at the 2 years ago, if you can score 7 to 10 points more a game, then you're winning 8 or 9 games. And we
Yeah.
knew that if we could just improve a little bit offensively, we played pretty good defense around here for a while now, that would equate to a lot of wins. And obviously, there's still some things that we can do better. I'd like to dominate time of possession more than we did, but certainly when you're scoring points, that's the most important thing. So I think there's a lot more meat on the bone in regards to some things that that we can do a lot better around here, on both sides of the football. But love what we're doing offensively and excited. I've never been more optimistic and excited about an off season and trying to find ways to get better, and there's certainly ways that I know we can do better. And looking forward to seeing this offense evolve, and looking forward to seeing the growth and development of these players. And we've got some really good ones.
And like you said, when you go through this season, and you said you've never been more excited going into an off season, your ties to Oklahoma were obviously spoken about a lot going into the Armed Forces Bowl and this opportunity that you had against the Oklahoma Sooners. This win over the SEC, it's a great win for the Navy midshipmen. It says a lot against the argument of the military academies not being big enough or prepared enough or strong enough, and these things that I honestly personally can't stand hearing. But defeating an Oklahoma team that's in the SEC 21-20. We talked about Blake Horvath, the 95-yard touchdown run, which was the longest in school history for the Navy midshipmen. We look at this game and we see the fact of beating an SEC team. First time it's happened since 1954, and that 1955 Sugar Bowl at the end of it. So where you defeated Ole Miss, Navy midshipmen did as the academy here. But to get this win for you personally in your connection and your roots to Oklahoma, and to be able to end the season saying everybody focuses on Army Navy. It's a massive game. It's huge. It has history of people that are in the military, are veterans of the military, are going to be in the military. So that game in and of itself is a massive exclamation point. And then you turn around and face an SEC school in Oklahoma and you defeat them. So for you, those ties and just what it says about the state of the Navy midshipmen defeating an SEC team after defeating Army in the Army-Navy game.
Yeah, well, those last 2 wins, obviously, Dan, are really really big for our program, and kind of put the cherry on top of a good season. There's no question about that. And we want to be significant in the landscape of college football. We want to be relevant. We want to be in the conversations, um, and we want to be a team that every time we step on the field, has a chance to win. If we take care of our business. And I thought we showed that, toward the end of the year. I don't think many people expect us to win the Army game, and I certainly don't think many expected us to win that Oklahoma game. So really, really proud of our players, and I think we're transitioning. You got to learn how to win games,
Yeah.
especially when you haven't done that, for several years, and I think our kids started to do that, and now it's the expectation around here, and those 2 wins especially, great momentum obviously going into an off season, and a great way to finish things out. And for me personally, that was a pretty special moment, pretty full circle moment, as you can imagine. Playing a team that you grew up idolizing,
Yeah.
and going to the game when you were a kid, and so it was certainly a full circle moment for me, kind of surreal, and yeah, it was just tremendous to get a win over a program with such great history, an SEC program, and just create a lot of confidence and momentum, for our players, going this offseason, moving forward.
What does it say about Navy and the American Athletic Conference? Because the narrative is, like I said, military academies can't hang, the American can't hang, the whole group of five moniker that gets put around conferences like the American. What does a win like that over Oklahoma do to kind of ripple effect and echo from 2024-25 into 2025-26?
I think the message that it sends is how important culture is in your program, and I think some of the things that are going on in college football right now uh, are benefiting us. When you look at the transfer portal, high school players aren't getting as many opportunities
Yeah.
as they used to. I think that's allowing us to recruit a higher caliber player coming out of high school. It's allowing us to be a little more selective. And then you're talking about a team that plays for each other, and not to say that you can't build a culture at some of these other bigger schools in the midst of the portal and NIL world and all that stuff. It's becoming more difficult, and I think it puts a spotlight on how important the trust piece of things is, how important it is that your players and your coaches care about each other, love each other, play for each other. And I think we play a really unselfish brand of football, and I think um, that's why you see us having some success right now. And so I think it sends a message to the rest of the college football world. This place is a unicorn, and we're still a developmental program, and there's merit to that. I think people are starting to see that.
And you talked about relationships. Now, it's I didn't think it was possible, but we did see that immediately after the Army Navy game, Kanye Udo, their running back, went into the transfer portal. And like you said, it's something that at these military academies you don't really have to worry about and think about. High schoolers not getting as much opportunities gives you more of an opportunity as the Naval Academy to go and get them, go and get prep school kids. But when you saw that happen with Army and someone does go in the transfer portal, how difficult is it to leave a military academy? Because when you come in, I mean, you're obviously committing years of service and there's different things that go along with it. So even though that happened, do you think that that's an anomaly? And for the most part, there is a protection because of a commitment that a person makes to the Naval Academy, that the transfer portal really is not going to be something that we see
Yeah.
being used a lot, I guess I would say.
Well, there's some layers to that, Dan, but I do think it's an anomaly. I think when a young man decides to play at one of the academies, it's not just about football. It's not just about the next 3 or 4 years. It's about the next 40 years, right? And so I think these kind of young men see the value in that. And we've had guys that had opportunities to leave here and go and make money and play in Power Four programs, and they've elected to stay. And I think this is a unique place. This is a true brotherhood here. These guys care about each other, um, and they don't want to let their brothers down. And once you start something here and you understand the value of the degree and you value serving your country, I think those situations are certainly going to be. Not to say they can't happen, obviously, and not to say we're not concerned about it to some extent, but I don't think it's going to be an issue or a problem for us.
And my final note here, we talked about how you have evolved as a head coach, but PJ is your defensive coordinator. How do you have to catch yourself at times with PJ Volker and be like, well, I think you should do this, and then kind of step back and be like, no, do your thing. How well do you work off of each other? Because being a D coordinator and, like you said, leaning a little bit more on the defensive side, do you have to almost catch yourself at times and say, like, I got to let him manage this, and then we'll talk after he kind of schemes it out? How's kind of the back and forth between the two of you?
Well, him and I, we have a great relationship, and I trust him entirely. And so, there's certainly times where I feel like that, or maybe I'd have made a different call, but I never second guess PJ. He's as well prepared as anybody that I've been around. I think he's done an exceptional job. I was just telling him the other day, if I could go back and coordinate again, there's a lot of things that I would do differently because of the way that he's done them here. So the relationship's really good. That staff, defensive staff, is phenomenal. There's no egos in that room. There's no second guessing or anything like that. And I was probably just as excited, maybe more so, to promote him to defensive coordinator than I was being the head coach. And so he's been tremendous, and he's always open to suggestion, and we talk through a lot of things. But on game day, he does his thing, and I'll let him do it because he's really good at it.
Well, time as always when we talk flies by, Coach, and I appreciate a lot of things from you. I appreciate our friendship more than anything else, and appreciate seeing your growth, the way you've always treated me. I mean, you've had a fantastic season this season, did a lot of great things to build upon, but I think it's important for the world to know that's listening to this and watching this, that the character that you have, the type of person that you are, being a man of your word, being consistent, and never being too big to reach out to anybody, me included. I just want to say thank you for the human being behind all of this music that we see on the field, because it's people like you that God has allowed me the opportunity and blessed me to cross paths with, and that never goes unnoticed by me. I want to see you win. I want to see you succeed, but that no matter what the record is, to me, you're the same. You've been consistent, and I just appreciate the fact that you've been a good man and a good person in my life, and probably to a lot of people. And I would find it wrong to not end on that note of saying thank you for just the character and the faith and the kindness and the generosity and humility that you bring to sports, and really honestly to the world in general.
Thanks, Dan. I appreciate that, man. It means a lot coming from you. It really does. Always good to see you, and appreciate you as well.